Why did Putin invade Ukraine? The simple answers are easy. Natural resources, NATO expansion, imperial nostalgia, but none of them fully explain what's happening. And Putin himself has said in interview after interview that the reasons are deeper, philosophical, historical, spiritual, and most Western observers have no idea what he means. Today, we're going to find out. To understand Russia, you have to go back not to the Cold War, not even to the Tsars, but to the very beginning, to the soul of a civilization that was forged over centuries in conditions of extraordinary hardship. In the year 1300, Moscow was nobody, a small landlocked principality paying tribute to the Mongol Empire. Nobody would have bet on it becoming the largest country on earth. But it did, for a reason that will keep repeating itself in this story. Weakness forced resilience. When you have no natural defenses, no mountains, no rivers protecting you, and enemies on every side, you either unite or die. Moscow chose unity. And over time, that unity became an empire. But here's what makes Russia different from every other empire. Its expansion eastward, across Siberia, across the steppe, was not driven by ambition. It was driven by desperation. Serfs running away from poverty and slavery, peasants fleeing into the wilderness to start over, and the state following behind to collect taxes. Russia didn't expand because it was strong. It expanded because its people were escaping misery. This shapes everything. Americans expanded westward for opportunity. Russians expanded eastward to escape suffering. And that single difference, optimism versus fatalism, divides these two civilizations more deeply than any political system ever could. Now, enter the artists. Because when a civilization lives with this much contradiction, half European, half Asian, officially Christian but still pagan in the villages, trying to modernize while clinging to something ancient and unnameable, the only people who can make sense of it are the poets and the novelists. Tolstoy's most famous opening line, "Happy families are all alike. Every unhappy family is unhappy in its own way." He's not just being clever, he's telling you that the interesting question, the Russian question, is not how to be happy, it's what happens when happiness fails. And in Anna Karenina, he shows us a woman who pursues her own happiness, abandons her husband and child for a passionate affair, and destroys herself in the process. The lesson isn't that love is bad, it's that love built on self-gratification and not on trust and sacrifice cannot hold. That's the Russian answer to Western individualism. But the soul of Russia, its beating, suffering, impossible heart, lives in Dostoevsky. Dostoevsky was arrested as a young man for revolutionary activity, sentenced to death, stood before a firing squad. And then, at the last moment, the sentence was commuted. They sent him to hard labor in Siberia instead. And that near-death experience, those years of suffering in the frozen East, shaped everything he ever wrote. His most famous novel, Crime and Punishment, is built around a single terrifying idea. A brilliant student named Raskolnikov reasons his way to a logical conclusion that he is exceptional enough to be above ordinary moral rules. He can murder an old woman nobody likes, take her money and use it to become great. The math adds up. The logic is clean. And then he commits the murder, and his mind falls apart. Because Dostoevsky's entire point is this: reason can justify anything. That's not reason's strength, that's its danger. What reason cannot do is carry the weight of what you've done. Only the heart carries that weight. And the heart doesn't speak in logic, it speaks in guilt, in shame, in the need to confess, in the longing for redemption. God, in the Russian Orthodox tradition, is not the God who rewards the successful, as in the Anglo-American world. God is not the demanding perfectionist of the German tradition. The Russian God is the one who forgives everything, who looks at the drunk who sold his daughter into prostitution and sees not a failure but a suffering man in need of mercy. That God, Dostoevsky believed, was the only real answer to modernity. Here's the turning point. Russia has always believed, from the burning of Moscow to the sacrifices of World War II, that it is capable of a kind of self-destruction that other civilizations are not, and that this capacity for sacrifice is not weakness, it is the source of its power. Whether you agree with that or not, whether you think it's noble or terrifying, you cannot understand what Russia does in the world without understanding that this is how Russia understands itself. Putin did not invent this worldview. He inherited it, and until the West takes it seriously, the conversation will keep happening on two completely different frequencies, one speaking the language of strategy, the other speaking the language of the